Hi everyone, Barbara Rankin here today with another video creator tutorial for you with ColourArte. We are going to pick up right where we left off earlier this week from my previous video, which I will link to in the upper right hand corner and also in the description area below this video. Now, since I started this new series on making your own DIY embellishments, I've had questions from viewers about what to do with them. I've mentioned a few ideas in my previous videos, but today I'm going to start off with some actual visual ideas, and then we will make a quick project and use some of these smaller pieces I shared earlier. Now I've gone through some of the things I've made in the past, and I wanted to show you how a few of these that I've finished up here could be used. Now this is a very old piece that I used, and it was my first design team tryout piece. But I was looking at this and thinking some of these would be awfully pretty. Maybe something like that up here. And I had thought that this would make a good key ring. And then this could go on the wall and this could hold the key dangling down. So that's an idea. You could also put this bird piece here. Add some more flourishes around it maybe, or coming off, or leaves coming off of it. I mean, this could have much more improvement. I have several other pieces here. These are all ColourArte projects I've made. This is just a dollar store notebook that I covered and painted with the ColourArte products, and this is supposed to be my focal point on here. So I'm looking at that would make a lovely embellishment on this. And since the cardboard is nice and sturdy, it would be sufficient to support that. Again, that would make a nice embellishment. And also, that would make a nice embellishment. Here's a couple more. This is a very heavy tag, chipboard tag. Again, these are just ideas that you could have used. If I had had these before, I might have actually used them. Again, that one might be a little bit too thick. If I wanted this one, I might pour it thinner. But that's just an idea. This would be, let's say this wasn't here, and just try to imagine without that under it. But that would be nice to fit between the between those little mechanical bugs. And then lastly, I have this tag here. Again, I keep going to this one, I know, but these colors seem to fit it really well. And again, and I say, you know, it doesn't have to exactly fit. If I needed to, I could pull things down and work around it. But I'm just trying to give you some simple ideas that what you can use these on. Imagine this is the front of a card. Again, this one is nice and thin enough and lightweight enough that you could put that on there. Make your card just like this. Okay, so there's a few ideas for you. I hope that's helped. Now let me take these and put them off to the side because we won't be working with those today. Today I'm going to use some of these smaller pieces that I molded from the Permastone, and the project today is going to be a little composition book that is in terrible shape, and I'm going to use my ColourArte products and some other mixed media and fix this cover. I've got some notes in here I don't want to destroy or lose, so I want to keep this, you know, keep this little notebook handy. So that's what we're going to do today. So let me take care of these few things here. I'm just going to clear the path, and then we'll get started on the little composition book. All right. Now my cover is in pretty bad shape because I had some paper covering the cover, and when I tore it off, I tore off some of the paper that was actually on the cover of the composition book. And so you can see it's pretty stiff here, and here it's very, I mean, I could actually probably poke my finger through that, it's so thin. So what I want to do is just take some typing paper or your printer paper, and it's just, I've just got a scrap here. This is just a piece that I was, testing my print quality. And so I'm just going to tear it into strips. And because this is an inkjet printer, I'm going to place any printed parts down because they will react with anything wet, and I don't want that to happen. And I am going to leave this attached if I can. I'm not sure I can. Yeah, it's staying nice and attached. I'm thinking that I'm going to probably ultimately cover this with some pretty washi tape, but I do like having this because I like a strong binding, and I think this will just add to it. I don't think washi tape by itself would hold up. So I've got some multi-matte medium here. Use whatever you have. And I'm just going to speed up the video while I tear and glue pieces of this text paper down to both covers, keeping the papers on the front away from the edge where the spine will need to be glued back down. I'm afraid the spine might look lumpy if I don't keep that edge smooth. And by gluing these little strips of paper to the cover, I'm not only adding strength, but I'm also adding texture to the cover. Well, it seems my cover has come apart, but my pages are still intact, so I'm just going to set those off to the side. That's probably a good thing anyway. And now I'm just going to trim off the excess paper around the edges. And you want to wait until this is all dry. It didn't take very long to dry, so, but you don't want to get it all over your scissors. So next I've got some light molding paste. Use whatever molding paste you have. This is light, and I like it because it dries rather quickly. You'll also want to consider what kind of media you put on your notebook, because this is not something that's going to hang on the wall untouched, but something that's going to be used and folded and touched, and goodness knows what will happen to it. I mean, it might be sitting on your desk and you spill coffee on it. So you don't want anything that's going to crack off or pull off or peel off. So bearing that in mind, I'm going to use this stencil from Stencil Girl, and it's called Pixels. So I'm going to spread the paste through the stencil, keeping the paste off the black spine area. And I'll do this on both sides. You can use your heat tool to speed up the drying time if you like, and be sure to clean the paste off your stencil and tool right away. Now I'm going to use some white gesso to prime the cover before I begin adding my ColourArte paints. This will allow the paint to move and not just sink into the paper wherever it lands. You can use your heat tool to speed up the drying time too. I'm going to use Rusty Mauve Silk's Acrylic Glaze for my first color layer. I'll dip my brush in water as needed to spread the color over the background. And I'll use a swirling motion with my brush so I can get some good coverage in and around the stenciled areas. If you feel like you have too much water, go ahead and add more paint to the piece. Now I'm blotting the paint with a damp baby wipe. I'm using it to remove some of that excess paint that has accumulated around the raised stenciled areas. And once again, you can speed the drying time with your heat tool. And now I have Mediterranean Blue Silk's Acrylic Glaze. And Primary Elements Sea Glass Powdered Pigments. And I'm going to mix the two together with some water. First I want to mix the blue glaze with the water, And then I'll pick up some of the sea glass powder onto my brush and mix that into the blue, adding water as needed to make a nice wash. Then I'll brush the color mixture over the background. And I'm not really concerned if I get some of the paint on the black spine because I've already decided I'm going to cover it with some pretty washi tape. And then once again, I'll use a damp baby wipe to dab up some of that excess that gets stuck or caught into the edges of the raised stenciled area. If you feel like you removed too much paint, just come back with a bit more. I decided to add just a straight blue wash of color this time, dabbing it randomly over the background. And then go ahead and speed up the drying time with your heat tool. Next, I'm going to really spice things up with Solar Gold Primary Elements. This is one of my favorite colors. I'm using a damp baby wipe to pick up the powder from the jar and rub it directly onto the background. Use a clean spot on the wipe to remove more powder if you need to. The powders do not have any binder in them, so you will need to fix them so they won't rub off. Now I'm going to use the Black Emerald Primary Elements to distress the edges of my book. Just use a clean section of the damp baby wipe to pick up the powder and apply it to the edges. You can remove some of the color with a clean section if needed, and reapply if you remove too much of the color. Just keep going until you like the result. Now I'm going to take my covers outside and spray them with this fixative so they won't rub off. This spray will not leave any film, shine, or matte finish. It is completely invisible. Okay, so here's my cover with the fixative already sprayed and dried. And so now none of this is going to rub off on my fingers. Now, I've decided to make this side the cover. Since it came apart, I can do it either way. This is the way it actually came off. I'm going to turn it around, and I think I like the colors a little bit better on this side. So I have my tray of embellishments here, and I've chosen these three, and I'm thinking I would do something like this and maybe put the heart on top, and then I want to stamp or use some rub-ons for a word like notes or ideas or something like that. And I'll either do it like this or like this. I'm thinking I kind of like it like that. So now we need to paint our embellishments. So for sure I'm going to use the Rusty Mauve silks for this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that. I'm using a dry brush, no water, and brushing the Rusty Mauve over the piece, being sure to cover the sides of the piece as well. You'll get really good coverage with the glaze straight from the jar, and it does give a silky finish to the piece. You can really see how silky smooth this piece looks with the silks on it. I think that'll look very pretty on there. Okay, I think we need to stick with the Mediterranean blue for the base piece, and I might add some of the sea glass primary elements to it. But first, I think I'll try the blue straight and see how it looks, and then maybe I'll want to do a wash with the sea glass. So again, I'll rinse and dry my brush and paint the base piece with straight silks color. Again, you want to brush the color on smoothly and make sure the side edges are covered well. Go ahead and repeat this for the elongated section and let both pieces dry well. I'm going to make a wash with the sea glass primary elements, but this time instead of using water, I'm going to use the solution, which is an acrylic wash medium that contains the binder that's necessary to prevent the powdered pigments from rubbing off. So I'll just place a puddle of the solution onto my mat, and wet my brush with it. Then I can pick up the powder in the jar and mix it up on my mat to make the wash. Simply brush the wash over the pieces, and then you can dry it with your heat tool. Okay, I'm just going to leave them there to cool because this Permastone does get hot. So please be careful whenever using your heat tool, and the Permastone does retain the heat from it. So don't even try to pick it up. Think of it as metal. Okay, now I'm going to add a wash to the heart, this time with the Solar Gold primary elements and the solution. Follow the same process as before, and if you use your heat tool, let the piece cool before you try to pick it up. Okay, and one last thing I want to do to this base piece here is I'm going to use some DecoArt Crackle glaze, and I'm going to apply it with a little spatula. Mine has gotten a little thick, but it still works plenty fine. I'm spreading a thin coat of the Crackle glaze over it, and then I'll attach the heart-shaped piece into the wet glaze and set it all aside to dry. You can use a piece of sandpaper or an emery board to sand off any imperfections on the edges. I'm using my fast grab tacky glue to adhere the covers to the spine. I feel like a thick wet glue such as this will work best to keep the covers and book pages together. While the book and covers are drying, I'll finish up the final touches on the embellishments, and then we can adhere them to the front cover. We'll also be adding some washi tape to the spine. Okay, so remember I said we could stamp a title on this piece or use some rub-ons or stickers? Well, I found a couple of things in my stash. Tim Holtz makes a couple of different varieties. He's got this book of stickers that would work. You can see that these are sized right for this piece, and you can make up your own title. There are quite a few choices in here. You could choose between craft or white. But I think I'm going to use one of these rub-ons. Again, there are lots of choices, and you can mix and match the words to make something appropriate. I particularly like this one, Important Details, because that's what I feel I have already started writing in this little book. So I find it easiest to cut out the word or words you want and then place them onto your piece, being careful not to touch the rub-on itself. These particular rub-ons needed a little elbow grease to rub off, but work slowly and remove the top layer carefully, a little bit at a time, to check to see how much of the word has rubbed off. If you still need to rub, replace the cover sheet and rub some more. Since this is going on a notebook that will get a lot of handling, it's a good idea to protect the rub-on with a coat of varnish or a matte or gloss medium. However, I'm going to spread a coat of the Crackle glaze over the piece, which will serve two purposes, one to protect the rub-on and the other for a cool crackled effect. Now I'm going to use the black emerald primary elements to bring out the cracks in the pieces. Just pick up the powder from the jar lid and rub the powder into the cracks with your finger. You can seal these if you want, but the only powder I'm trying to protect is what went down into the cracks. It won't go anywhere as long as you don't get it wet. I did the same thing for the word piece to bring out those cracks as well. Now all that's left to do is simply glue your pieces to the front and add that washi tape of your choice along the spine. I'm using the fast grab tacky glue and putting a generous amount onto the back of each piece because my surface is uneven with the stenciled paste on it. I found this wide roll of washi tape from Graphic 45 in my stash, and I had measured my spine to be 1 inch wide. So lay out a piece of the tape onto a glass mat or a cutting mat, not your craft sheet, and cut a strip 1 inch wide and long enough to cover the edge of the book. Then apply it to the spine. Use glue to adhere it if it starts to peel off. Just trim off the excess and you're good to go. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's project. And I also hope I've been able to answer some of your questions about ideas for using your embellishments that we made with the ColourArte and Permastone casting compound that we molded inside product packaging. Here's some close-ups of the mini composition book project and embellishments we made today and added to it. I will post a complete list of supplies used below the video and on my blog. If you enjoyed today's project, please give me a thumbs up, and I would love for you to subscribe to our channel to keep up with all the inspiration from the design team. Thanks so much for watching, and remember to always take time to play.